I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be talking about For All Mankind Season 4, Episode 2, so if you haven't seen it, this will contain spoilers. First of all, thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this video, I really appreciate it, and if you haven't done it already, leave a like and subscribe to the channel as well. Last week's episode was a great reintroduction to this show. We caught up with all the main characters while meeting a few new ones along the way, with Miles being set up to play a larger part in this story, and he certainly did this week. We see both his and Danielle's journey and life on Mars once they settle. How the two are different, and a lot of the same problems that we have back home are beginning to rear their head on Mars as well. It seems that this season is getting ready to set up some sort of seismic change in this world. It's just not exactly clear what it's going to be yet. But let's get into the episode. So it opens with a large musical number from The Strokes, and what a tune, do you remember that? It's
I remember like it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
not the only one featured in this episode. Got some thoughts on that, I'll get to it later on. Anyway, a crew arriving on Mars, so it's Miles and Danielle, but to start off with, this is all from Miles's point of view. We see him descend from the spaceship all the way onto the planet's surface, and then his journey from there to the Happy Valley colony. And I really like this point of view because space travel is now normal for most of the main cast of characters in this show. So having a sort of average Joe land on another planet shows that there's still wonder in this world. And we see his journey in his new job and his processing there as well. And this is going to change later on in the episode, don't worry about that. And if you're a fan of real grounded space sci-fi stuff like The Expanse or, the first two Alien films, this world does feel kind of like that. It does feel functional, but it's not at the level that anyone really wants to stay there long term. It might be a space adventure, but life here isn't easy. It's certainly nowhere near the comforts of Earth, and at times it feels more militaristic or sometimes like a prison in this episode. Miles gets the grand tour, and we learn that the North Koreans have their own section of the colony that the rest of the workers and astronauts can't enter. We'll also see maybe things are brewing between them and the North Koreans later on in the episode as well. There's a lot of tension here, and you don't really know how it's going to spill out onto the rest of the season. He gets his first assignment, but due to the asteroid not arriving on the planet, it's not what he trained or hoped for, and he's just a sort of janitor or repairman. So the dream of Mars is kind of initially shattered for Miles, and it gets broken later on in the episode as well. But while he'll feel let down, the colony definitely does seem to have its own culture with a black market, and this does play an important fact later on, so it plays into the whole prison vibes thing here a few times this week. We also see how big this base actually is in the daily people and the comings and goings, and it does feel alive. Miles is trying to call home, but there's an issue getting his video mail, so it seems that he'll be more cut off than he anticipated. While this is all going on and he's learning that the dream of Mars is a bit more of a nightmare, we catch up with Danielle, who probably didn't get that level of orientation when she landed. Her and Ed meet up and they talk about the loss of Grigori, but don't go into too much detail. He gives her the grand tour, and it's changed a lot since her last visit, and this is where you see the other side of Mars that's all fully functioning and working perfectly well. She isn't the only one that's back. As I mentioned, the North Koreans have a presence on the colony, and Lee, the Korean astronaut who they found at the end of the second season, is back as well, but he's under heavy restrictions and sanctions by his government, so I'm not exactly sure what they're setting up here with the North Koreans, if it is going to be something later on in the season, because like I say, there's a lot of tension in this episode, so I don't exactly know where it's going to go. Danielle's trying to get the crew together to give a speech. She talks about the sacrifices made to get here and how they have to mean something and that everyone's all in this together. She really wants all the parties here on Mars to work together, so that's a lot of countries that we aren't fully sure how their politics work exactly in this world at this point. If things go wrong on Earth, will it mean something's going to go wrong on Mars? I think that's going to be one of the setups of the season, but we're going to have to wait and see. But the two arrivals of Miles and Danielle are literally side by side this week, and I don't know how I feel about that editing choice or the story. It does go on for quite a while, but we do see both sides of Mars' management and labour in this case. But yeah, this scene went on far too long for me, almost the full duration of the song, ending with Miles being treated badly by a NASA crew member who kind of views him as second class and below him. So they're definitely setting up a two-class or a top-tier system here on Mars, and I don't know if they're trying to say something about the same back on Earth. The dream of Mars has been sold to a lot of these workers here and everyone on the planet, and it's not what a lot of people expected. While Grigori is being immortalised for dying on the asteroid, an employee who was also not part of the space programme is forgotten about. So it does seem that they're really setting up this two-tier system, and it's been brewing for a while, with even Ed ignoring it when Danielle mentions it over lunch. He sort of sees anyone who works for a corporation as being second class compared to astronauts who volunteered to serve their country. And she wants to address the issues head on, getting the communication back up for the base corporate workers like Miles, and wants to repair a small satellite that's going to improve communication with Earth. And it is great seeing these two characters back together. And I really thought Ed was going to be a dick about having her as a boss, but he's kind of happy to follow her lead. Back on Earth, Alida is still having issues, not sleeping and having other symptoms of PTSD. Her husband wants her to go and get help, but she doesn't seem interested and she doesn't really want to move forward either. She does go back to NASA to speak to Eli about her position there, and she has a flashback during their talk. So she definitely has problems and realises that leaving the meeting, quitting NASA in the process. She's not the only one having issues with Eli though, as Kelly is working on a drone robot research back on Earth that the new director wants to cut the programme's funding, basically because of this whole asteroid debacle. So Kelly was hopefully going to find new life or water or something along those lines using drones in subterranean caverns on Mars. And both of these two run into each other in a bar would have not had the best of days. And we realise, of course, that they do have history, with Alida being the one that came up with the plan on how to get Kelly off of Mars at the end of the last season. And remember, this is the bar that's been in the show since season 1. It's now under new management. Kelly tells her about Eli cutting her programme while they drink, and Alida tells her she quit NASA, talking about how Margot would have felt let down by what's happened. Well, Kelly feels she's been robbed of a potential big discovery on Mars. Alida later figures out that Kelly might be able to get her programme back off the ground by getting private funding, but it would mean leaving NASA. So giving up her dream job and her family heritage, but you can tell where they're going with this, making the transition that Ed's never fully been able to do, leaving the prestige of NASA for better or potential better opportunities in the private sector. Back on Mars, Miles is going through some of his files in his bunk room when he's finally gotten his first paycheck, realising that the company are taking the cost of living off him, so roughly about 30% of his wage. So the dream of Mars is now fully tainted, and it wasn't all it was supposed to be. He complains to his superior and runs into Ed, who gives him the God and Country speech and really dismisses him quite quickly. They managed to repair the communication satellite, so there's cause for celebration on the command level at least. We see the command team watch baseball as Miles gets his backlog of videos, and you can tell it reminds him of what he's up there for, managing to record and send a reply back for once. But he lies about what he's been up to and continues to sell the false dream of Mars, but breaks down halfway through with frustration. He doesn't think that he can do it the full 2-year contract, but if he does go home before it ends, the company Helios gets to sue him for 150 grand. So he's sort of sentenced up there, and like I said earlier on in the episode, it definitely does feel like a prison at times, if you're on Miles' end at least. One of the crew members, who was part of the failed asteroid mission, remember, takes him to a den run by the black market guy who we met earlier on in the episode, and the three of them drink their troubles away. The episode ends with us catching up with Margot, who's still stuck in her life in Moscow. In the park, the man she buys her daily papers from is being closed down by the police. They don't really give a specific reason why, but they have orders to clear the streets. The crowd gets out of hand and there's arrests, and as she tries to prevent a cop from beating one of the crowd, she's dragged off, and that's where the episode ends. So, if last week's episode reminded us of the glory and beauty and potential of space travel, this one brings us crashing back down to Earth. We're seeing class and social divides on both Mars and Earth, and both have been brewing for quite a while. They keep reminding us, the audience, of how important the asteroid is to the future of Mars, so I wonder what will happen once they have it and they don't need Earth anymore. Are they building towards a 3 Mars kind of thing? I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, although we didn't really get the stunning visuals this week, the Mars colony itself was very impressive, and it looks and feels realistic, and that's the important thing. It's a great lived-in space. Tell, despite what's going on, things are really thriving there. I really enjoyed this episode of For All Mankind. It's clearly setting up a lot of big stories for the rest of the season. I wonder what's going on in the Soviet Union there at the end with Margot. I just think there's probably a few political issues that we've not seen yet. They could also use that to bring back certain characters as well, but as always, we're going to have to wait and see. This week didn't really pick up too much on the Ed thing, so I think they're going to drag that out for the rest of the season, but this is probably going to be his definitely last mission in space. But as always, I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. What's with all this tension brewing on Mars, back on Earth? What's going on there? Is Kelly going to leave NASA? Let's be honest, it's about money, so obviously yes. But let me know what you think below, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. As always, my name's Al. Thanks for watching.